anytime you hear, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to a lawyer. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one. If you hear those words, those are the Miranda rights. Keep your mouth shut.
So here's a question for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Are you sure you're ready?
Yep.
You're ready?
Bring it.
All right. So the police knock on your door. Knock, knock, knock. And they're friendly.
Hey.
Real friendly.
Uh-huh.
They just want to talk.
Little chat.
Clear a few things up. Maybe they even tell you that you're not in any trouble.
Why would I be?
Hey, so what do you do? Most people open the door and start talking. And our guest today spent years on the other side of that exact conversation as a prosecutor, watching people talk their way into a case that didn't have to exist. Welcome to Unseen Impact. I'm Rory Pendergast, and as always, I'm here with my beautiful wife and co-host, Carrie.
Hi, everyone. And I'll be honest, this is the episode I've been waiting for. You all know I'm the true crime person in this marriage, so today is a little bit like my Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, Super Bowl.
Yay.
It really is. Normally on this show, we talk about what happens after an injury, the things you don't see coming. Today, we're looking at a different kind of unseen impact. What happens when you're the one in the system that is suddenly looking at and how one bad hour can follow you for years. Our guest is Anna Yum.
Yay.
Yay. Anna runs the law offices of Anna R. Yum here in San Diego, and she's one of the most recognized criminal defense attorneys in the city. She's tried cases from DUIs all the way up to the most serious felonies, murder. She's licensed in California and Illinois. She's the person on national networks call when a big case is in the headlines, serving as a legal analyst for outlets like Court TV and Law and Crime. But here's the part that matters most for today. Before she ever defended anybody, Anna was a prosecutor. She built the cases. So when she tells you how to protect yourself, it's coming from someone who knows exactly how the other side thinks.
Which is the dream, honestly. It's like getting the other team's playbook.
Yes, it is. If you're new here, hit follow. If you're not, drop us a rating and share this one with someone you love. Because everybody knows somebody who would open that door and start talking. Anna, welcome to Unseen Impact.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yay.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yes.
Well, I have to say the funniest thing happened at work, probably last week or the week before. I went to somebody's desk to help them with something, and I'm not an IT person. Somehow I'm the IT person at this office. So I go, and she has her landing page. And it's you.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what are the chances?
I was like, I know her.
I know. Yeah. What have you been up to?
And I was like, oh, note to self, I better go back and see what that was about. But he looks beautiful. And I was like, oh my God, it's Anna Yum.
Thanks, Carrie.
So this is fun.
This is a lot of fun.
Yay.
I love you guys. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so glad
Well,
you're here.
to start off, what we wanted to kind of lay the foundation, the groundwork, and just kind of have you talk a little bit about your background, who you are, and a little bit about how you started on the prosecutor side and what that means to you now.
Yes, absolutely. So I was a prosecutor at the Riverside County District Attorney's Office, and I was a deputy DA for about 2.5, 3 years before I decided to come back to San Diego, because I did graduate here in San Diego from University of San Diego School of Law. And after while I was waiting for my bar results, I actually ended up taking a clerkship at the Public Defender's Office.
Oh.
So he was here in San Diego at the Public Defender's
right
Office.
there.
Right. And I got a ton of experience. My mentor was probably one of the best trial attorneys I've ever had the opportunity and the pleasure to work with. And he's no longer with us, which is so unfortunate, but I learned so much from him. And then after I got my bar results, I decided I wanted to see, okay, what's the other side like? Because I always thought a good trial attorney can try both sides, right? And not just have blinders on, but to be able to spot the legal issues and advocate on both sides.
Well, and then to see behind the curtain, to see what it is that the state is looking at.
Exactly.
So what kind of cases did you first work on up in Riverside as a prosecutor?
So in Riverside, of course, the younger deputy DAs always start with your basic DUIs. Those are the cream of the crop, right? For a young misdemeanor deputy, it's just trial is the currency. So it's DUIs, petty thefts, different types of vandalism, domestic violence.
It's got to give you a great experience because, in compared to a murder case,
right,
these are fairly quick. you have I imagine the same sort of steps along the way. It may not be as severe of step, as steep of an incline, but you have the same stuff that you have to do day in and day out.
Exactly, because the elements are the same and they're very basic for your standard first-time DUI offense. So the supervisors give you the opportunity to try these cases and to make mistakes because it's all about the practice of law.
Right.
So when you're a baby DA, you're just given the small cases and you just want to go to trial. Like, I just want to go to trial.
It must have been really scary though at first, right? Can you remember?
I do remember.
Your first one.
You know, I was very excited. I remember my first trial. It wasn't a DUI. It was just a drug possession case.
Okay.
But I worked as if it was a murder case.
Yeah.
I just spent hours and hours and I loved it.
Yeah.
So in that one, walk us through for the drug possession. What are you doing to build the case against the person who's been accused and charged?
Good question. So with that kind of case, you have to obviously look at what type of evidence there is. And back then, we didn't have body-worn camera footage. It was a different type of practice. So really, it's the cop's word versus the defendant's word versus any other witness's words. So what you would do is you would have to look at the elements, look at the police reports, look at any audio recorded interviews, look at the evidence. Was there a good reasonable search or seizure? You look at to see any potential suppression issues. And then you have building blocks. So here are the elements and what are the facts to support these elements. And so for me, I remember the public defender I was going up against. He was a very seasoned public defender. So that's intimidating.
Right.
Because when you're a baby DA, it's your first trial. You're like, oh my goodness, am I going to get am I just not going to do well here? But for me, it was preparation. And for me, I'm most confident when I'm most prepared, like anybody else.
Right.
So I spent hours just knowing the case like the back of my hand. And when I knew the facts, you could just talk.
Right.
And that was what was huge.
Did you win?
I did.
Yay! That's awesome.
What about internally? Are there mechanisms internally on the prosecutor side, at least up in Riverside, where you say, okay, so you've done all of this work, or do you have to do a write-up? Are you presenting something to your supervisors? What does that look like?
Yes, there's a lot of mentorship at the DA's office because that's a great thing about working at the DA's office. You have so much camaraderie of people who are more experienced than you, who know what they're doing. So I had my team leader, I had my supervisors, I had fellow DAs. And to this day, I still keep in touch with many of my friends, many of my colleagues, because they gave me a ton of experience and we developed friendships.
Well, and that's the thing that I find most interesting because it's not just like you're given this small case and they just said, just go do it. Here's the file, don't bother me, right? which I've heard before.
I have too.
But you're not given that. So what it means is that you have to meet a standard, and that's what the prosecutor's standard is.
That's right.
And so internally, you have to know for each individual thing, this is what I have to know. This is the evidence I have to have.
Absolutely. And that's where the mentorship is huge because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
When you're a baby DA, you just sit there and say, okay, these are the elements. And that's when it's your responsibility to go to your team lead and say, okay, this is what I'm thinking. This is my sample direct examination. What thoughts do you have?
And if they're wrong, they're going to tell you, ooh, no, nah.
Yes, because they'll say, we've made this mistake before and we don't want to make it again.
Yeah,
so that's really interesting for me then is that, so now anyone at any level of potential crime comes to you in your current position, the criminal defense attorney. I imagine you're building it in your head as to what are they doing on the other side.
100%. I always look to the other side to say that's what they're likely going to argue. This is what they're going to try to get into evidence and this is what I'm going to try to block.
Well, and you know this as well, it's on the personal injury side where you do is you start at the end, right? And so for me, even if it's certain car crashes, maybe it's damages, maybe it's liability, you go to the jury instructions, which are set for hey, this is what a judge is going to read to the jury at the end if this were to go to trial. Not just at the end, but like at the end of the trial.
Right.
And so this is what you have to prove.
Yes. And that's very similar to what I do too. When I first get a criminal case, I always look at the complaint. What are the charges that the person is looking at? And then I pull the jury instructions.
So what do you think those that didn't have the prosecutor side, that experience, what do you think they may miss that you won't?
I think it's like you guys said, it's the playbook. It's just that experience of knowing how the prosecutors look at certain cases, because I think that's just invaluable experience, right? Because I've been there, I've done that. So I know what it's like to start from issuing a case all the way to the end of going to jury trial. And I think that's the most dangerous thing if you're a defense attorney is not spotting those legal issues, because if you don't do that, you will be very, very surprised, and it's a disservice to your client. It really is.
What I can imagine as well is understanding even kind of the not Republican and Democrat, but the political side that goes into it, because they're government officials.
Right.
And so there are certain cases that might have more sort of political currency than others. And so the way in which, in one particular situation, I see something in San Diego going now, a county worker, struck and killed a poor 27-year-old girl that was sitting at a bus stop. And reading about it, it seems as though the prosecutor side here, they're really going after this. And I think some of it has to do with, that sort of stuff shouldn't happen. But I would imagine that you have the sense of those little nuances that perhaps some of us won't.
That's right. And a lot of times politics does does play a huge factor, especially if there's a complaining witness who has a little bit more clout or maybe has connections, or if that complaining witness has more exposure, social media, whether it might be, a highly publicized case. I think all those variables definitely play a factor in terms of how the prosecutor goes forward on a case. They just do.
Yeah.
So do a lot of the are the crim cases all jury? Or do they settle? I feel like I understand a little bit about personal injury, but how does it work on your end?
I would say that the majority of criminal cases, at least in the private sector, settle because there is so much risk when you go to jury trial, as you guys know, right?
Yeah.
You never know what a jury's going to do.
Sure.
Well, and you're not just risking maybe the loss of money, or maybe you have to go to bankruptcy, which sucks, and you don't want that to happen. You might get locked up.
Right.
Or have some other sort of super negative consequence.
Absolutely. I've had clients who are looking at lifetime sex registration if they get convicted, mandatory prison sentences, jail sentences, and it just affects them not just now, but obviously for their future. And so if we can reach a deal that's manageable, I always leave it up to the client, but it's my job to tell them, these are the pros and the cons. These are you never know what a jury's going to do. I've won cases where I'm like, how did I win that? And I've lost cases where I was like, how did I lose that?
Yeah, right. Oh, that's so crazy, isn't it?
It is.
So getting back to that, as kind of we started, this was, as I was going through some notes about what I wanted to talk to today, is it brings me back to taking, as a law student, you have to take criminal law. And we had this, I thought he was super young. He looked crazy young. He was probably older than he actually looked. But I remember he telling us, the first day of class, he says, how when you hear people say that this person got off on a technicality, I'm like, well, yeah, I've heard that, technicalities. He said, typically the technicality is the U.S. Constitution. and so it brought me back to that. And what I was thinking about is, especially, we as a nation are celebrating 250 years. And then as the podcast and a few other things, we've been in the process of exploring that and celebrating that. And really, even more than the civil system, I think that the criminal system is really constitutional. Right. The technicalities, right? So thinking about, I want to go to this, somebody gets the knock on the door or a telephone call. Hey, how you doing? Just a couple questions for you. So if that happens to somebody, what would you say to the potential client that calls, or the family member of the potential client that calls?
The cardinal rule is keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
The cardinal rule is that you have the right to remain silent. That is your Fifth Amendment constitutional right against self-incrimination. And so whenever someone calls me, before they talk to the police, I always say, thank you. Thank you for calling me now, because I've had so many cases where it was too late.
Yeah.
They've already spoken. They've already sung like a bird. And after I get a case like that, and I get cases like that at that point, it's just damage control. Yeah. So it's very important to know your rights, because a lot of times officers will say, hey, I just want to hear your side of the story. But they're building a case.
But again, it comes down, this is built into the Constitution. The founding fathers considered this. And they came up with actual rules that they embedded into the bedrock of our nation, of our legal bloodstream. Right. So, for instance, if an officer pulls you over and wants to search your car, what's the constitutionally wise? What are your constitutional rights? What is triggered? What isn't?
So you have a Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable search and seizure, and of course, there's exceptions to the search warrant rule. So the first question you ask is, where's the search warrant, right? Because one of the exceptions is if you consent. Sure, officer, go ahead and search my car, and then they can do it without a search warrant. Now, of course, again, there's exigent circumstances, there's the car search, there's inventory, there's all these different search warrant exceptions. But what you should do is if an officer says, I'd like to search your car, where's the warrant?
Yeah.
Where's the warrant?
Yeah.
Now, if there's plain view and things are in plain view, of course, it's a different legal analysis.
Yeah, but just I think coming down to the core of it is that we think, oftentimes people they want to be helpful, or the biggest thing is, well, if I say no, does that make me look guilty? But I'm not guilty, right? So what would you say to somebody in that situation?
And that's what people ask me all the time. And if you're smart about it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to them whether you look guilty or not. You still have your rights, because cops have retained me and hired me. And the first thing they do is nope. They keep their mouth shut, and they say no to searches because they know, officers say certain things, but if they're in that position, they won't do it.
Isn't that telling?
It is.
What it makes me think about is getting some sort of business card or something that just says, what would John Adams say, right? And he's going to say, thanks, no thanks, but no thanks.
Right.
Tell me more about, because it's kind of funny. My mother-in-law, my favorite mother-in-law, as I like to call her, always calls me asking about, hey, Rory, did you see this? Did you see this?
She likes to watch court TV and stuff.
Court TV. And I'm like, talk to your daughter, because she definitely knows more than I do about it, right? But she always comes back to that same thing about, if somebody comes to you and say, well, what if I don't want to look like I'm guilty? Like, what is your tagline that you tell people?
I tell people, it doesn't matter. Keep your mouth shut, because at the end of the day, your outward appearances, the Constitution protects you. You have the right to remain silent, and that can't be used against you. So, for instance, if you're in trial and the prosecutor is not allowed to comment and say, well, if they were innocent, they would have said something. That is completely unacceptable, because that's unconstitutional.
So then what are the words that somebody should say? Whether you get a knock at the door, you get a phone call, or you get officer pulls you over.
I always tell people, be polite. Okay, be polite. Don't be a jerk. Be polite and just say, do you have a warrant if someone's trying to search? If someone says, I'd like to talk to you, I'll get back to you on that. You don't have to give a statement. Let me talk to my lawyer first. I'll talk to you. And it really depends on what the cop wants. If the cop is like, I want to talk to you as a witness, that's different than I'd like to talk to you because I think that you might be a person of interest. And I'd like to get your side of the story. Anytime you hear, I'd like to get your side of the story, lawyer up. Lawyer up, okay? Because it's not about trying to get your side of the story. It's building a case.
But aren't they also not honest? Like, can they be like, oh, I just want to hear like your witness?
Yes.
But maybe it isn't a witness statement.
Correct.
So
they can lie. They can lie to you, and there's no repercussions to that, obviously within reason. So let me give you a classic example.
Yeah.
If you are being implicated for a sex crime, let's just say, or lewd or lascivious acts with a minor, let's just say it's that, or a sex crime, and an officer, let's just say that the alleged victim calls you and says, I just want you to tell me that you're sorry and just admit to what you did.
The pretext call.
Exactly. It is a pretext call. And under the California state laws, cops can listen to these calls and record these calls, and your statements can be used against you in a court of law. Which is crazy.
No.
It's not entrapment. It's nothing like that.
No
These kinds of
way.
statements can be used against you. So you just have to be careful. Of course, it goes back to the cardinal rule. Is if an officer is asking you questions about what's going on here, I want to hear your side of the story, call a lawyer.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So kind of moving on to the next step, right? So somebody is arrested. And then so walk us through first off, how does it get to the point that somebody gets arrested? And I'm not talking about a DUI that's easy, right? Somebody gets pulled over, you smell alcohol, they're glassy-eyed, whatever, but some sex crime, some other drug crime, something else. And the officer is going to go arrest the person. What happens on the law enforcement side in order to make that happen? And then what happens immediately after the person is put into the criminal system?
Great question. So from the law enforcement side, they need probable cause, okay? And that's a different burden than what the DA needs to prove someone guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
So probable cause, a much lower level.
Much lower, right?
Okay.
So objective facts or circumstances that would lead a reasonable person to believe a crime is being committed. It requires more than just suspicion. It requires more than just a hunch. So an officer has a way low standard to arrest someone. So let's just say an officer arrests someone. And I get this question all the time. I wasn't read my Miranda rights. Does that mean my case is thrown out? And the answer is no. Because Miranda rights are only for when you're in police custody and the officer's asking you questions designed to elicit incriminating responses. But for instance, if you're in the cop car and they're just detaining you, and then you just start talking and you're like, well, this is what happened, and you have this urge of, I want to tell you my side of the story because maybe I'll convince you not to arrest me.
My side of the story sounds pretty dangerous.
Yes, and then the officer's just listening, okay, because you're volunteering that information. That's not a violation of Miranda. right? So that's why a lot of times people think that they're helping themselves by saying, well, if I just tell you my side of the story, you'll let me go.
Yeah.
And then by the time they go into the station and an officer Mirandizes you, and then you give an additional statement. These are things that you don't have to do. Again, you have the right to remain silent.
Right.
So these are things, if you get arrested, just be mindful of that. Just because they don't read you your Miranda rights doesn't mean the case gets thrown out.
Yeah.
And also you just
Zip your lip, ask for an attorney.
Right. It's so funny. This reminds me a little bit of like in high school when you're like, why am I in geometry class? Like maybe I should be getting a little more information about this because that will help me more in my life, or like how to change the oil. Oh my God. You know what I mean? When you think about like, this is super valuable information. Like all you have to do is not say anything.
Correct. Not say anything. Ask for a lawyer. Say, I'd like to talk to my lawyer. And then, anytime you hear, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to a lawyer. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one. If you hear those words, those are the Miranda rights.
Yeah, right.
Keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
Okay, so now
That's
let's see.
crazy.
Typically, I would say this has been my experience, for me on the personal injury side, oftentimes whether it's the family that's calling me first or the family that's given me the best information.
Right.
I'd imagine on the criminal side, if somebody's locked up, the phone call's going to the family, what do I do? So then you're getting a call from a family member or a loved one. What are you telling that family member or loved one about the person who's been arrested?
Well, the first thing I say is do not talk about the facts on the phone because everything is recorded. So if the person...
You're talking with
the family member.
Okay.
Right. So if the family member calls me and says, John Smith, my loved one is in custody, the first thing I say is don't talk to him about the facts of the case because the call is being recorded.
Yeah.
And as a former prosecutor, I listen to so many jail recordings. And so they don't think that they're being recorded, even though there's a notice that says this call is being recorded because they're just in so much stress. And they just start talking.
Yeah.
So the first thing I say is, look, I'd like to make a jail visit so I can talk to them without it being recorded and find out what happened. And just to see if there's a good connection because as much as they're choosing me, I'm also choosing them.
That's I feel the same way.
Right.
That is the podcast is called The Unseen Impact because we're really looking at those little things that maybe you don't think about. And I didn't think about some of the stuff that you were just talking about right there. You're like, what happens here?
Yes.
All right. So then you go. When does the arraignment take place?
So
talk us through this.
Wait. So the family hires you?
Right. So let's just say the family says, I'd like to make a jail visit to visit John Smith. Yeah. And I go and John says, okay, I'd like to work with you. And then the family makes arrangements to retain. And I'm sure you deal with this all the time, but there's a third party situation, right? Just because the family pays, I don't have any duty to them. My duty and loyalty lie to the client.
Yeah.
So I make sure the family is aware of that and they sign an acknowledgement saying, if he says, I don't want you to talk to my family, even though you paid,
right.
I have to honor that.
Right.
I remember that from professional responsibility.
Correct. So those are the things that you have to go through.
Yeah.
And so then once the client gets retained, then the arraignment happens. And if there's different rules, of course, but if they're in custody, they have to be seen by a judge within 72 hours.
That's pretty quick.
Right. And if not, then they have to be released. They can't just be sitting in jail. They have to be arraigned or the DA has to make a decision. And a lot of times if the DA hasn't made a decision by then, the person will get released on the third day.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're in the clear because the DA could take more time to review it within the applicable statute of limitations.
Which we're not talking days, we're talking years.
It could be a year, it could be 8 months, it could be 2 months, just depending on the nature of the case. Yeah. And the person can be dragged back into court for their arraignment. So at the arraignment, what we do is we enter a not guilty plea. The client is advised of his constitutional rights. He's notified of the charges against him, and then we enter a not guilty plea, and that initiates the proceedings. That's kind of the start of the proceedings.
And so there is a number of differences between the civil side and the criminal side. And I think one of the biggest differences is the speed in which this has to happen. For the civil side, I've got cases that somehow drag on for years. But the criminal side, typically it's a lot faster.
Yes.
Talk to us about that and why.
Right. So there's speedy trial rights, and clearly it depends upon the client. If the client's in custody, then I usually will not waive time unless it's a very serious case.
Waiving time, essentially, it comes back to the Constitution.
Correct.
That where the Constitution says, hey, you can't, this is basically a complaint against the British. You can't hold us for no reason.
Right.
You have to, if you're going to hold us, you got to make a decision.
Exactly.
And you got to move quickly.
And
so then waiving rights would be signing off your rights to that speedy trial.
Right. And entering what's called a time waiver. So I have a certain time parameters and I'm waiving that because let's just say it's a murder case.
Yeah.
Well, it's a disservice to the client if I'm like, I'm ready to go in 30 days and I haven't looked at the evidence, let's go.
Yeah.
So it just depends upon the nature of the case, but you're right. It's shorter than civil usually.
Well, and that's one of the things I was going to look at. You've got, these are front loaded. Right. I mean, I refer to our internal system. I refer to some launch pad in the beginning. We're trying to launch off, but we're like in slow motion compared to what you guys have to do.
Civil is so much lengthier in terms of the process, and in criminal, you're right, it does move fast because we're expected to be in court maybe every 30 to 45 days for a status hearing. If it doesn't resolve at a status, is it going to a preliminary hearing?
Yeah.
And then after the preliminary hearing, is there an arraignment? And then another status, and then there's trial. So we're in court all the time. So to your point, it goes fast.
The one thing that I don't get, because I've spent years watching Law and Order, and 42 minutes of programming, they start to finish, they got it all. So, but so what's the? I mean, do you get to? I get that again. Family members, friends. It's funny. As a personal injury attorney, I get more questions about criminal law, and I say, you know what?
It's more interesting than my car got bumped at this red light. And you're like,
yeah, there are more salacious facts. That is true.
Exactly.
Never a dull day. There's never a dull day.
Oh, geez. I know when you get home, does your husband care?
No, my husband, we've been together for so long. He's heard it all that I have a tendency to compartmentalize, and I treat it very similar to how a surgeon would treat something, right? If they have a surgery, it's very clinical, and then they go home and you compartmentalize. Because if you don't, I think it could really destroy and eat at you. And so I try to make it a point to just leave work at work and home at home and be with my family. And it's a certain type of personality, I think, that can deal with that because we're dealing with such dark and very salacious facts.
Yeah.
The Carrie loves true crime podcasts.
I do.
True crime podcasts. So you ever listen to any of the true crime podcasts?
Honestly, sometimes, but not a lot because
Yeah,
I
you
live
live
it
it.
every
You live it
day.
every day.
So it's almost like overkill for me.
Yeah. What kind of podcast do you listen to then?
Honestly, when I have time,
Yeah.
my sister has a podcast. I'm very close to my sister.
Oh, really? What's her
and
podcast?
She has a podcast called Mommy Dentist in Business. And she runs this amazing group of moms who are dental practitioners and they have their own practice. And so there's just a lot of, I was on her podcast before, but there's a lot of different things that we talk about. That's really what I listen to. Aside from that, I don't really spend too much time with podcasts.
Right. That's so funny.
So as the podcast true crime podcast listener, do you ever think, because here's, for me, what's very interesting is the constitutional aspect of it. Like, I mean, are you ever really thinking about what does this mean about their rights, about anything else? What?
A lot of times I'm like, oh, he sounds guilty.
Yeah.
One time I was picked, I had jury duty and I went, well, they're never going to pick me,
This
right?
was a number of years ago.
This was
I remember.
a really long time
ago. I
ago.
remember
And
this
Was it
one.
a criminal case?
Yeah, and it was a rape.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, guilty. I was like, this is easy. And so, but also they were like, can you forget everything your husband's ever told you? And I was like, no, I can't. Like,
No,
we
it's
just
just
finished
annoying
law school.
voices in my ears.
No, like, no. But
I just hear Rory on
yeah,
repeat.
exactly. But I remember being like, well, he just looks guilty.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I mean, I know that's not right by any means.
And that's, again, coming back to like the unseen impact aspect of it. That's kind of what we're looking at, is because most everyday person's interaction with it is Law and Order or some sort of other television program or movie, which typically they're even worse.
Right.
Or, your true crime podcast, which the true crime, you're looking at the story of what happened, as terrible as it may be.
Right.
That's what gets people interested. But they're not looking at like the criminal law. It is a constitutional process. And that perhaps, here's the thing, perhaps the person did it. Mm-hmm. But
Do you know? Can you tell?
Oh, yeah. A lot of times I can't tell.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
And, for me, it's redefining what winning means. Because when you're a prosecutor, you win. That's what
win.
you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You've got the
Right.
facts.
Right.
But criminal defense is a lot more challenging, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because you have to be more creative.
Right.
You have to think, okay, do they have the elements, and what can I argue to try to get past that? And so, as a criminal defense attorney, when I look at the elements, I have to redefine, okay, maybe I'm not going to get a not guilty on this, but maybe it's I can shave down the time.
Right.
Or maybe it's I did a really good cross-examination here or a strong closing argument. So it's how you redefine it in your mind that really kind of compels you forward.
So what happens with your clients who they get time, but you did a really good job? Are they like, okay, thanks, like I'm not going for life? Or like, what does it look like on the end when everything's done and people walk away and then you have to, talk to your client before they...
Yes, sometimes I have to deliver some hard truths to them. And it really depends. I've had a wide gamut of different types of clients. I've had clients, and this is the most worthwhile, when they tell me, Ms. Yum, I know that you did the best that you can.
Aww.
So whatever happens, I'm very happy with the work that you did.
Oh, that's
which
so
is just
nice.
so heartwarming for me.
It's defending the principle of the Constitution and their inalienable rights.
Exactly.
That's what it comes down to.
And a lot of times it's about, was this overcharged? Okay, sure, this person may have been guilty of something, but is it really of what they're saying it is, or is it more this? And so it's about mitigation too. Some cases I look at, I say, look, I'm not going to be able to walk you on this, but we're going to try to mitigate your damages. Your exposure is this. Let me see if I can whittle it down.
You're going to jail.
Right. I have to have those conversations too. It's
going to jail,
you're
but it's
going
just
to
a matter of
prison.
for how
It's just
long.
a matter of how long, and I'm trying to mitigate. And I have several clients where they're looking at life sentences. So as a defense attorney, if I can get the DA off of life and get them something determinate, which is non-life, even better, right? So it's about framing it in their minds to understand the state of the evidence, what the defenses are, and also what their exposure is, right? What is the risk that you're willing to take? Sometimes people just go to trial because they don't have a choice. It's life or the possibility of maybe I fight it and one of the jurors or two of the jurors or however many of the jurors sides with me. So there's just so many different types. And you're right. Like when I talk to clients, I've had people who are very happy. And then I've had, on the other hand, people who are just upset about the outcome.
Right.
But I tell them, I'm not a magician. I can't change the facts.
Right.
Right. So I do the best that I can. And if I do the best I can, that's how I know I can sleep at night.
Right.
Yeah. No, and I think that's what it is. And really, because that's one of the other items, one of the biggest questions that I recall from it's kind of the philosophical questions in law school that they talk about is that, okay, if you know or the evidence kind of suggests that somebody did something, how do you sleep at night? How can you defend that person?
Yes.
I mean, and getting all funky on it, but looking at John Adams, defended the British soldier that had killed a boy in it, and why? And it's because it comes down to the idea that before the state can take something from us, prove it.
Right. Prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
Prove it beyond a reasonable doubt and prove the consequences that you're asking for.
And that's something that's really primary in any closing argument or any jury trial that I am conducting. I always bring it back to the jurors about presumption of innocence and beyond a reasonable doubt. Because really at the end of the day, it's not about guilt or innocence. It's about whether the DA proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's how you have to frame it to them. It's not whether someone's innocent. Did they prove it?
Did they prove it?
Right. And to your point, I get that question all the time. How can you sleep at night? How can you do that? And everyone has constitutional rights and everyone has a right to a fair trial.
Right.
And you would want someone to be on your side if you were in that position.
Right. Actually, that's what I say about jury duty, because it's for whatever reason, everybody in my office, we all got jury duty notices within like the same month.
Oh, I remember it was,
And
it was intense.
one of my best friends growing up, her dad was a judge, and he always used to be like, "You have to go. Like, God forbid you're ever the one
civic
sitting
duty.
in that chair. You need to. You want people, good people." And I'm always like, "Well, like I'm gonna do it. Like I always go.
I love that.
Yeah, and I tell people the same thing. Like, God forbid, like it would suck if something
Just
happens.
nobody ever chooses me.
Yeah, I know. No one ever chooses me either.
Yeah,
But
me
I also tell the jurors too, you took an oath. You took an oath to promise to follow the law here. And when I just had a trial recently, so I saw some of the jurors. And yes, it's frustrating because they have to wait for the sidebars. They have to wait for a lot of the temporary things that the lawyers are dealing with. But at the end of the day, the judges always thank them for their civic duty because it is so important.
Yeah, it is.
And if you were sitting in the defendant's chair, you would want someone to listen to all the evidence and not make preconceived judgments right away.
Right. Yeah.
So with it, again, coming back to the unseen part of the criminal, because I really do think between Law and Order, because there's like 15,000 different seasons, but then just variations of it and just the movies, like people are fascinated with this. But the wildest thing is that there's very little about the actual process. The funny thing is that Better Call Saul probably has more of the actual process than Dick Wolf and his
Law and
thousands of
Order.
things, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
It truly
funny.
does. But you, with all of the experience, what is it that you see that people are missing, that your clients or their family are missing that could cause them troubles?
Well, I think, again, the cardinal rule is keep your mouth shut. So if they haven't said anything, I can't tell you how many cases I've had where charges were never filed because they couldn't prove it. Because a lot of times, if you start talking,
Right.
you'll implicate yourself.
Yep.
And there's so many cases where I've said, if you had just kept your mouth shut, we wouldn't
Yeah.
even be in this position.
Yeah.
Right? So
Another constitutional amendment.
correct. Your constitutional right people are not aware of.
Yeah.
I think another thing too is that people don't realize the complications of the future because sometimes people say,
Yes.
you know what, I'm just going to go with a public defender and I'll just take my chances. And what I tell them, it's how much of an investment are you planning on taking, not just for your present, but for your future? Because
Well-
it's not just about, oh, can I get out of jail right now? If you plead guilty to a felony, how is that going to affect you in the future?
So that's one thing that, a real life example, I had a call the other day. And so you have like a 24 to 26 year old, super big guy, but just sweet as sweet can be, but he looks intimidating and is a home healthcare worker, right? Like that, God bless home healthcare workers because it is tough
Right,
job.
right,
It
yeah.
is tough
Very
work.
tough.
Yes.
And anyone who wants to go into that is something. But, maybe had too many drinks one night, got into an argument with a fiance or girlfriend, a bruise on the arm, nothing too major, but then gets just hit with a bunch of charges
Yep.
that are really nasty. And so thinking about that is that, some certain level of domestic violence sort of a plea deal is guilty.
Right, right.
What happens to the future?
So, especially in domestic violence, under California law, you have to do what's called a DVRP, a 1-year mandatory requirement of domestic violence rehabilitation program. And so people don't realize that if you plead guilty to a DV offense, domestic violence, it's not just pleading guilty, it's 1 year of your life that you have to do the rehabilitation program.
So what is the rehabilitation program?
Anger management, how to diffuse a situation. It requires counseling, sometimes group sessions, individual sessions. It's a
Wow.
real time commitment. And
Wow.
that sometimes is the deal breaker for some of my clients who are like, look, I don't want to have to go through that entire thing. So it's not just those consequences, also firearm prohibitions.
Yeah.
So if you have your Second Amendment rights and you're really into guns, if you have a DV conviction, say goodbye to those firearms. So again, to the things that you don't see.
Yeah.
Right? The things that you actually don't see. And this is another important thing about DV. Ever since O.J. Simpson, what's interesting now is that if you call the police, and let's just say that you're like, I just want to diffuse the situation. I don't want anyone arrested. It's just getting out of hand. Someone is going into custody.
Yeah.
Really?
The cops are bringing someone in. That is a policy. So if you're calling and you're like, you're drunk, I want the cops to come just to babysit essentially. Whoever you're calling the cops on, they're going in, or you are, depending upon what the cops investigate.
Well, and on the
Oh,
other side,
wow.
when you look at like the purpose of law enforcement, protect and serve, and protect side, right? So if you can avoid, because oftentimes the DV claims can escalate from something that is small or minuscule to injury or possible death.
Right.
Whereas if you can just remove one person from that, and so think about, that's what's kind of wild to think about, just by simply showing up and just taking the person away, and that maybe now somebody doesn't die.
Right.
That's kind of the scary thing about it. But because here's the thing: is the consequences are so heavy.
Right.
So thinking about what other sort of consequences could happen, whether it be DV, DUI, drug charges that might follow that person, right? Because I got to think there's a higher level of people that are charged with crimes that are possibly younger.
Right. And so whether you're younger college kids, for instance, or, for instance, I represented a college kid who was charged with sexual assault and he got kicked out of school. He had a Title IX hearing, which is a lower burden. He got kicked out of school, had to fight these charges, and it affected him. And he wasn't even 20 at the time. And then you're looking at potential lifetime registration. Then you're looking at potentially being a convicted felon. So it doesn't matter what age group you are, these kinds of consequences follow you for the rest of your life. Now, in a domestic violence case, let's say that you're, involved in some sort of argument with your significant other and your children are there. You could not just be looking at domestic violence. You could be looking at child endangerment for exposing your children to alleged domestic violence. So there's so many other variables that you don't even think about what you could be charged with that can implicate you for the rest of your life.
And essentially, the charge doesn't end when the case ends, right? The
Right.
charge can potentially follow you forever.
Yes. So if you are a convicted sex offender, you have to register every year. Every year you're reminded of that. And then you're on the list and then you have to put your name. And if you don't register, that's another crime.
Yeah.
So there's just other violations that could happen. And then if you're on probation and if you violate probation, you're going back into custody.
Well,
So-
and I can get it. There's certain predators out there that should be that
Right.
way. But if the law is set, the protection side of the law is set up to group everybody
right.
as though they're the worst.
And there's different tiers. So it used to not be like that. It previously was, if you have to register, you're registering for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But now there's tiers. There's tiers 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1 is usually for misdemeanors where it's a 10-year registration. Tier 2 is 20 years and tier 3 is lifetime. And this is a change in the law because previously back in the day, it was all or nothing. So you can imagine that sometimes those are the reasons why people go to trial because they're like,
Yeah.
I'll take my chances
left-
right.
with the
left
justice system.
Right.
The
Wow.
yeah, that's the consequences are so high. So then what it makes me think about is that just how important it is that you find the right criminal defense attorney.
Right.
Regardless of how small you may think it is. So what are some of the items that you would tell people to look for in a criminal defense attorney?
That is an excellent question because I think it's such a personal decision
Mm-hmm.
and there's so many different types of attorneys, different strokes for different folks. And there's so many good attorneys and there's so many not so good attorneys. I think one of the things that I always tell my potential clients is ask not just their experience, but what kind of experience do they have working in your particular type of case? Do they know the judges and the DAs? Because I would never take a case in LA over someone who's already in LA.
Yeah.
Local matters.
Yeah.
And San Diego, believe it or not, it's a big city, but we're a small legal community. And I have seen LA lawyers get hometowned. I have seen
right.
Orange County lawyers get hometowned where judges are like, who are you?
Yeah.
Right? So if you know the people, then you know strategy.
Yeah.
And strategy is huge. So those are the things that I always look at. And I always tell my clients or potential clients, be careful of the attorneys who guarantee or make
Yes,
promises.
yes.
Oh,
Get it
yeah.
in writing and you'll see how fast
Yeah.
they backtrack. And like, no, I never said that.
That's not what I said.
That's not what I
Right.
meant. So
Yeah.
I always tell them, do your due diligence. And if people come to me and they say, look, I researched you, and I always know someone who's well prepared because they've already have their questions ready to go. They've looked at other attorneys. So there's just a litany of things that I really kind of recommend, but it's a connection because if you don't have a
absolutely.
connection with your attorney, then why are you working
Right.
together?
Well, you know, because I always say the same sort of thing with that, like, hey, thanks for, I'd be honored to do this, but we have to be able to dance together, or else this isn't going to work. And on the civil side, it can be serious. It can be you're looking at grief, but at the end of the day, you're getting money,
Right.
And so, but still, we need to. I have to have somebody who I'm going to listen to, and that they're going to listen to me. With you, it's like that on steroids.
Are there any cases you just definitely won't take? Like, do you know? Is it like the person who comes in, you're like, nah, this isn't, or
Oh, yes.
or the family who's really difficult and like,
yes.
it's super. Because I feel like for Rory's practice, like there would be cases, and he's like, I knew from the beginning that like I wasn't
That
communicating,
wasn't-
they weren't or they were just difficult. There's things I don't, just like personality.
Something
seem to
doesn't
be
add
the-
up here.
I completely agree. And I think sometimes there's a saying, the best client is the one that you didn't take.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Oh,
if
funny.
you feel like there's not going to be that reciprocal trust, then I don't want to start off. Like if
Yeah.
you sense those red flags, and
Yeah.
I'm very big about instinct, right?
Yeah.
It's like in jury
Absolutely.
selection, when in doubt, kick them out.
Yeah.
with potential clients, if I feel like
kick
we're
'em
not
out.
gelling,
Yeah.
then I'm not the right attorney for you.
Yeah.
Right.
And you might not be the right client for me. And I always tell them, as much as you're choosing an attorney, I'm also choosing who I think is going to be a good fit. If
Right.
someone's rude and really disrespectful to my staff, that's a big no for
Yeah,
me.
absolutely.
And if they're just unrealistic expectations, and because the people who have unrealistic expectations are never going to be happy.
Right.
So I always have to gauge that when I'm
Yeah.
assessing, is this going to be a
Yeah.
good match? Like
Yeah.
you said, are we going to dance together?
Are we going
Right,
to dance
right.
together?
Is it scary to go into the prisons when you
No.
go in? It's not.
Not anymore.
Isn't like
Yeah.
clink, clink
Yeah.
behind you and
Well,
stuff,
yeah, you
Anna?
do a
I'm
lot.
so
That's
used
not-
to it now. When I was younger, I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, I don't want to go. But you
Yeah.
have to.
Right.
And now I'm just so used to it that
Well,
it's
you know
like,
what's funny is that
You don't get scared like that you're going to get locked in or there's going to be anything like
No.
nothing's ever there's like
I-
bells have gone off.
I have been locked in before where I'm like, let me out, and like an
Yeah.
hour. But usually they're very good about that. Like, okay, we'll come get you. They have to make sure all the security
Yeah,
is ready
yeah.
to go.
Yeah.
But it's just become so normal to me that I don't even think of it.
But you know what I haven't thought about in years? So my dad was a power line. He built power lines. And we're from Montana, and there's one big prison in Montana. It's in Deer Lodge, right? So it's all, and he grew up in Deer Lodge, but Deer Lodge is where this is at. And so when I was, I don't know, 12 or something, I was looking through the house at something, and I found this ID card. And it was like Deer Lodge prison, and it had my dad, and he looked like a criminal.
What?
And I remember freaking out, like, oh my goodness, was dad? And so, I told, before he came home, I go to mom, I was like, Mom, was dad in prison? And she just starts laughing, and she said, just ask your father later. And so, but it was, the power goes out in the prisons as well, and so they'd have to have the crews there.
And he needs identification.
And he needs the identification, but the picture was terrible. But I heard from him and then a guy that he had worked with, and they said that, of course, they go where the job is at. But I remember the one guy telling me, he said, oh, I hated it. He says, because when that door sealed behind you, they didn't have to open it up again.
Right.
Like, let me out.
Yeah.
I swear I'm not an
I know.
inmate.
Yeah, right.
Well, that was fantastic.
Yeah, this is so cool.
This is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank
Anna,
you.
thank you so much for coming here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yes.
It just went by so fast.
I know, it really did. I know. Well, we'll talk after.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll have to have, because some of this that we want the foundational stuff, and really a reminder of that criminal law is constitutional law.
Right.
And that's what it's there for, right? It's there to protect the public, and it's also to protect the people who the state has accused and who
That's
the
right.
state wants to deprive them of.
That's right. Your due process and your, like you said, your inalienable rights.
Inalienable rights.
I think that's the most
Well,
important.
the takeaway is just
Yes.
same thing
takeaways-
in insurance. So we
Th-
had
yeah,
this
yeah.
insurance guy on, and like in accidents, he's like, "Don't say anything.
Say nothing.
He's like, "Shh, nothing.
Silence
Nothing.
is
Don't walk out and say,
golden.
"Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." He's like, "Nothing. You don't say anything. You exchange information. Don't call your insurance company for at least 24 hours." It's the same thing.
It
It's like
is.
just keep it quiet
Because you want to fight the urge.
Yeah.
Because when you're nervous, think about
Yes.
it. When you're nervous and stressed out, it's diarrhea of the
Yeah.
mouth.
Totally.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And
The
so,
nervousness.
Yeah, and you don't
The
even know what you're
stress.
saying because it's like
And it's harder to backtrack
Totally.
it as opposed to just
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
saying anything at
Yeah.
all.
It's
Because
true.
most people aren't in the criminal system.
Right.
yeah.
Most people aren't in the criminal system.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
This was
guys for
great.
having
Yay.
me.
Yes.
So much fun.
Anna, thank you. This was exactly the kind of conversation we had hoped it would be. The kind where you walk away actually knowing what to do.
Keep your mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut. If you take one thing from the day, the friendliest moment, we just want to talk, is exactly the moment to slow down and ask for a lawyer. Lawyer up, as she says. That is not you looking guilty. That is you being smart.
And learn your rights. Before you're standing on the side of the road trying to remember them, that a charge can follow you for years. So the few minutes you spend learning this now, well, the future you will thank the present you.
That's unseen impact. The part nobody warns you about until it's already happening.
I told you at the top that this was my Super Bowl.
Super Bowl.
Yay! And it delivered. Thank you. All that true crime I watch, the most useful thing I learned today was how to not end up in one of those stories myself. If this helped you, do us a favor, rate, review, subscribe, and follow. Share it with someone who needs to hear it.
You can find Anna at the law offices of Anna R. Yum here in San Diego. Like she said, stay local. We are on all of the social media platforms, all podcast platforms, and on YouTube. We look forward to seeing you at the next one.
Thank you.